And welcome back to the show. Several trends that we saw the year 2021 will follow us into the new year. Resignation rates are at the highest among mid career level jobs and those in the technology and healthcare industries, with more rules on returning back to work now coming in place, including mandated vaccinations. Many employees are considering working from home. The question is remote work actually here to stay? And joining us now to share more is the founding partner of the Boyd Law Group. We're pleased to have Patrick J. Boyd with us. And Patrick, again, good to have you and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well.
I guess the question is right off the top, we know that there is a change. A lot of people are very happy about staying home. But is this a thing that we will see carrying on through the future?
Well, Darren, I think it's an interesting question without an easy answer, right? The longer that the pandemic and the variants of the pandemic have an impact on the safety of work, I think the longer remote work is going to be a trend and may move from a trend to an actual sort of standard for the workplace. You'll see some employers, including Adobe, for example, has decided to make remote work an option. In other words, some people can apply for a job for only remote work, if you will. Some other employers have been very aggressive in trying to get employees back and have been struggling with that, because once they say you must be back, then there's been another outbreak and they've had to require people to stay home anyways. Just as an example, just today, I believe American Express decided to go hybrid because of concerns about the new variant. So I think the answer is for sure that remote work is here to stay for some employers, but whether it's here to stay for all of them or not is something we're going to have to wait and see on. It's going to be determined by the future of the variant and maybe the future of worker interest and employers' willingness to understand that people can work hard and efficiently from home.
What are we hearing legally as far as cases when you talk about employees who have may thought about resigning from their job, given the fact that you've got this variant out there? There are people who say, "Listen, I don't feel comfortable going back to work. My job is forcing me to go back to work." Are we hearing a rise in cases of employees taking employers to court?
I think it's too early to know how far people are going to take the fight because the court process is so slow, right? But for sure, we get calls from clients every week about concerns of returning to work for really one of two concerns. Number one, they're concerned about their health, of course, and maybe they have a condition that makes them less comfortable with taking the vaccine. I've even talked to clients whose doctors have told them not to take the vaccine given their conditions, right? And then number two, those people who have these religious objections. There's aspects to the vaccine that were created or founded based upon stem cells and things from fetuses, and they have that religious objection. The courts and the law do recognize that if you have this religious good faith basis for objecting to the vaccine, you have a right to argue about whether or not you want to take the vaccine. And then, of course, those two groups of people have that argument that, well, I don't want to take the vaccine because of my medical condition, or I don't want to take it because of my religion, and I can still do my job remotely. So why don't you accommodate these concerns I have and allow me to work remote? We don't have a lot of great rulings on it from the court yet because it's so new. But if your question is whether the conflict is out there, the answer is absolutely. And I think we're gonna hear some argument about it, hopefully in a productive way in the months and years to come.
When you talk about a court ruling, we do know the Supreme Court has voted to uphold mandatory vaccinations. How big a win is that for those in support?
Well, so just to be clear, the Sixth Circuit ruling was in December, allowing these mandated vaccines from Biden, right? And then the Supreme Court is hearing yet another argument on this subject on the 7th of January, right? And we have a conservative court. So the question is going to be whether or not Biden's mandate, which impacts a certain number of employers, is going to be enforceable. That mandate is to either require employees to be vaccinated or to have weekly testing. The Supreme Court will hear oral arguments on that on Friday, and that ruling will only impact a certain number of workers. But I do think what the court says and how the court opines may impact what other employers choose to do. That is, they don't have to follow the ruling because the ruling is really about whether Biden has the power to do this, right? But what they rule in terms of Biden's power is likely to have an impact on what a lot of other private sector employers choose to do.
Yeah. I want to talk about some other legislation that's coming into effect in the year 2022, one being the whistleblower. That law goes into effect. Talk to us about what the law actually means and what can we expect.
Sure. Yeah. So, very, very exciting for those of us who are practitioners in the field. New York has been behind the times in protecting whistleblowers for a while now. A lot of other states, including New Jersey, just as an example, have had a whistleblower law on the books. This law will now enable employees who see things that are unlawful in their workplace to be able to speak out about it, and to know that if they speak out about it, they can't be fired. Or to be more clear, if they're fired, they're going to have a powerful legal claim. So a protection that they didn't once have, they will now have. The hope is that that will mean all of the employees out there will become greater advocates for a fairer, more lawful set of employer practices and policies, because they know that if they speak out about something they think is wrong, they'll be protected in doing so. That law goes into effect in the end of this month of 2022, so will impact things for years to come, and is just coming to us in this new year.
Any particular reason why New York is so late in the game, given the fact that so many other states have already adopted this policy?
To talk about the legislative history would be to say that we've been trying to get this passed for a long time. I think the employers have a powerful argument and a powerful lobby as to wanting to keep New York functional, and have argued that this is an impediment to successful business practices. I also think that the reality is that the law existed, right, but was not precise enough to give employees protection. It used to say that employees could complain, and I'm simplifying here, but it used to say that employees could complain, but they were only going to be protected from firing if they were right about the unlawful act they suspected to be seeing. So they had to know for sure that something was wrong. And what that really resulted in was a chilling effect, right? Employees weren't going to speak out if they weren't positive that the employer was cooking the books. They weren't going to speak out if they weren't positive that the employer wasn't honoring the regulations specifically. They didn't want to deal with the risk of being wrong. So now that good faith suspicion is enough to give them protection. That's the new change in the law. And I think the employers used to be arguing, well, no, the law is good enough as it is. Not really. Now we have a right, good standard, more consistent with other states' law protecting whistleblowers, which I think we should all be happy about, from employers and employees, quite frankly, because the right employers are doing it right and should be rewarded with success. It's the wrong employers who should have to account to their employees for not doing things correctly.
Share with me your thoughts as we enter the 2022 from a legal perspective. I know there's some new changes that are coming on, but as far as the court system and the Omicron virus now being prevalent, a lot of people are going to have to really take a further delay in having their cases heard.
Yeah, I think that's true. The whole legal process I think it's remarkable how many judges have embraced, understood, and started to do the Zoom meetings for things, which really results in a lot of attorneys not waiting in hallways, but getting their cases called, heard, and efficiently. It took some time, but at least for New York, I think we can be proud of how the court system has adapted and changed and got to be more efficient. But there's going to be a backlog there, right? And so matters are moving along now, and they're moving along well. But matters have been sitting for some time, and it's going to take a while for the court system to get up to processing sort of the older cases. I think the speed is now here, but the old backlog is going to take a while to clear, no matter how we do things.
As a lawyer, what are you looking forward to seeing come through the pipe in the year 2022? Are there some things that are more advantageous in your favor?
Well, I think the best part about this that we can all take some hopefulness away from is that a lot of employees had a chance to reevaluate their jobs and their role of their jobs in their lives during the course of the pandemic. People got a chance to stay at home. People got a chance to see their family, their friends. People got a chance to reevaluate their jobs and whether they liked them and whether they found them rewarding or not. And one of the things that you mentioned in the beginning was the statistic that a lot of Great Resignation were not just brand new workers, but people who had been in their jobs for a long period of time already. I think that's an indication that people who had stable jobs nevertheless have taken this time during the pandemic to evaluate their satisfaction with that job and whether they felt they were aligned with the mission of that job. and maybe to reconsider it and find a better job if they weren't as content with it as they might have been. Right now, in addition, we've got a staggering number of job openings, right? So employers are going to be in a position to be selective about the jobs they take on because of all these openings. And maybe we'll be interviewing for the jobs they want, jobs that aren't, quite frankly, not just jobs, but careers or missions, which I think can be really great if we find people working in places that give them pleasure, where they feel like they can contribute in a way that they feel good about when they leave. So for my hopeful sense, that's what I'm hoping this great shift might have led to.
Yeah, but I also anticipated is the fact of what we are looking forward to ahead when it comes to supply chain and demand. And I was with someone recently trying to buy a car. The gentleman told the car salesman said, "Listen, if you're trying to buy a car, now is not the best time to buy a car. First of all, there's too many cars. There's a car shortage. Second
Right.
of all, in addition to there being a car shortage, we don't. The price range is just not even conducive to being able to it's not pretty much a buyer's market anymore. You got
Right.
you've got a bad situation. And so talk to us a little bit about what you anticipate coming down the pike, because yeah, there's a lot that's going to play out in people, and a lot that's going to play out across the country.
Yeah, well, I think that's the other side to the coin, right? There's lots of job openings, but lots of employers who aren't quite sure how many employees they're going to need if their businesses aren't going to be open because of the variant, or if their businesses are not going to have, to your example, cars to sell because there's not a supply out there. So I think that it's quite possible that you're right. The opportunities are available in concept, but that it might take months or even a fiscal quarter or two to find out whether those opportunities are really going to manifest in actual job openings, actual choices about where to work, and how to find a good job, and a stabler um, economy with a uh, stabler social life as a result, right? I think it's going to take some time, and there's a lot in flux. Hopefully, we shuffle the deck and we come back better and stronger. But how long it takes to come back better and stronger is a very important question that I don't think anybody has an answer to.
Give me an answer to this one. Have you heard anything? I was talking with a couple of friends who were also lawyers, and they said, Darren, there's a possibility that as we come out of this pandemic, particularly in the courtroom, that you may be able to see going forward what they call virtual judges, which would be a permanent virtual judge. And that will be a way to actually help to mitigate cases. A person doesn't have to actually come into the courtroom, but actually have these virtual cases going forward far beyond when we get past this. Have you heard that? And if you have, what have you thought about it?
I've heard a little bit of talk about that. My thought is that we need good, smart women and men in rows deciding cases, and each case has a personal aspect where we need a good heart and brain evaluating it. What I have seen as a trend, which I think is useful, is that a lot of these judges hire very bright men and women to be clerks, and those clerks are able to provide a valuable service in procedural arguments, and even in spending extra time with litigants who can only spend a certain limited amount of time in front of a judge. And so I've had several cases where I get on and the judge is available, but the clerk talks to me instead and talks to opposing counsel instead for a period of time. And honestly, they're bright. They help, and ultimately they'll go run to the judge to get final approval on something if they need to. So you still have the authority of the judge and the court. But these clerks have been very adaptable, very useful. The courts were already starting to use them, but in this virtual setting, a clerk can maybe deal with 10 cases in the same time they could have dealt with 5. And so I think that's part of it. These are often, young law school graduates and people who are training with judges before going out to be practicing attorneys. So I'm not a big fan of the robo judge concept, although I've heard it talked about. But I do think the virtual setting and the ability of clerks to be more involved has been a good development, adding to the efficiency of the process.
We certainly will continue to follow this and a whole lot more. Patrick Boyd, thank you so much for joining us and filling us in as we begin 2022 from a legal perspective. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Happy New Year again.
Well, thank you, Patrick. A lot to look forward to in 2022. Now, for more information, we encourage you to visit his website at theboydlawgroup.com, and then also follow him on Instagram and Twitter at Boyd Law Group. Well, we got more show. Don't go anywhere. Open is continuing coming up right after this.